here with us on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. At 9 p.m, our focus is India's job crisis. While many during the pandemic managed to keep their jobs by working from home, there are many who were battling unemployment, bankruptcy, financial crisis, and couldn't deal with it. First time, viewers, the government has come out with official data. More than 25,000 Indians committed suicide due to unemployment and some or the other kind of financial stress between 2018 and 2020. Now, out of this, viewers, 9,140, that's not a number. It is the number of people who committed suicide. And they committed suicide only due to unemployment. They didn't have a job, and that's why they committed suicide. And suicides, in fact, among unemployed touched the highest level in 2020 with 3,548 suicides in just 1 year. Now, this data, based on National Crime Records Bureau statistics, presents a telling picture of unemployment scenario in the country. So on Urban Debate at 9 tonight, I want to ask, are we doing enough to tackle joblessness? That's going to be my key focus over the next 30 minutes. Joining me on the broadcast is Sunil Alag, former MD and CEO, Britannia Industries and business consultant. We have with us MS Unnikrishnan, former MD and CEO, Thermax Limited, and an industry expert. Professor Amir Khan, who is an economist, joining us on the broadcast too. Professor Santosh Mehrotra, economist, visiting professor at University of Bath, UK, also with us this evening. Thank you very much, gentlemen, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Mr. MS Unnikrishnan, let me begin the discussion with you. We've discussed about the issue of jobs earlier too, but I want your view on the data that has been shared by the government in Parliament today. Over 25,000 Indians lost, in fact, committed suicide. They died between 2018 and 2020, either because of unemployment, bankruptcy, or some kind of financial stress. Are we now doing enough to tackle this problem of joblessness, in your view?
I don't think a country like India with this level of population and job seekers can ever do enough. Are we taking initiatives? Yes. But the country was more worried about in the past, maybe almost 24 months, to come out of a pandemic situation, in that many policy decisions which could have been already in vogue and in place got delayed. But are we taking sufficient steps at this point of time to accelerate the job creation? 100% my answer is in affirmative. On account of the fact that the kind of initiatives that are announced by the government prior to the budget and in the budget are aimed at job creation. But please remember, policy decisions made, being executed and jobs getting created, the time gap between the policy announcement and job on the ground level to happen for the new initiatives would be anywhere from maybe 1 year to 5 years. So we need to be worried about, till that time, how we are going to be managing the unemployment in the country. It is a tougher situation. It can't be done by the central government alone. It has got to be a combination of all the states, central government, plus also the private industry put together. But there are enough and more opportunities getting created. That's my answer. But I cannot give an answer other than an apology for the death that has taken place because of, and you talked about a period which is prior to the pandemic initiating itself. It's not something acceptable to a country of our kind. That's my first answer.
Okay. Mr. Sunil Alag, how will you like to respond to the data? Because for the first time, we've also got an idea about how bad the pandemic year, the year 2020 was for so many in our country. About 3,558. This is not just a number. These are the number of people who committed suicide because they didn't have jobs. Their families must have been devastated.
What the previous speaker has said, I agree with him, because in a pandemic, you got to look at what's happening all over the world. Is jobs being lost only in India, or is it being lost everywhere else? And I think that Rega, they're giving them free rations, they are helping everybody in the rural area, and that's where the money went, because the government has only X amount of money. It's impossible to take care of 1.4 billion at the same time. So the government has taken care of the poor. So what you're talking about is the people who work from home are in the urban centers, and those by the private industry where they are losing their jobs and they are requesting you to work from home. Perhaps in that suicides are taking place, and we've got to work out the reasons why it's happening. Now, the total numbers that are happening, as the gentleman said, it's bad. But if you take a look at the figure that they've followed in the budget today, is what we have to look forward now. If we're going to look at the past, then jobless something there for the last 10 or 15 years in our country because of the population growth. Now, you have to control population. You have to ask the government to have more money. Now, they could have increased taxes, in which case you'd have said, why should the middle income group pay more? And therefore, the government has to work within a certain area. What the private sector should have done is not given up on the jobs in the urban centers, and their capex should have been on creating more factories. But they rely on demand. If demand falls and people don't have enough money in their hands, then obviously they have to close factories because the private sector is answering to stocks and their shareholders and everybody else, which may or may not be correct. But if you're going the Chinese way or the Russian way, when in the communist way, then fine. I mean, that's it. Then the government takes care of everything. But I think that, look, what they're spending, they are following Say's law in terms of taking care of the supply side. They are creating a lot of capex, which is going and building of roads, ports, trusts, everything else. But are they now, what kind of jobs are coming up? Are they skilling people or not? That's what's important. Because the kind of jobs that will come up out of infrastructure spending is basically menial jobs. I mean, what I call jobs which most people are being educated, and we are training our children to take up desk jobs. Now, this is not going to be a desk job. So it's a question of saying, are you skilling enough people, which the government is attempting to do? Is the private sector going to generate demand? They need not make as much profit as they did earlier. They have to cut down on their profits, which many industries are doing, and start spending on the future. And say, because that's why, if you take a look at all our stock market is going up because the profit is going up. And people think that we are going to improve over the next couple of years. Outside money is coming in. Therefore, whatever you are looking at, we cannot ever deny that, yes, there was unemployment, but is the government taking the right steps? That, economists will always argue. I have argued like mad, say, have demand creation first, which is the Keynes system. And the other one, the government is following the Say's system, Say's law. But I mean, we have to see how it works out. But, they think there'll be a trickle down of supply. I would say create money and put money in the hands of consumers. But the ones who really need the money are the lower middle income group, not the upper middle income group, who can in any way survive like the rest of the world, because this is a pandemic. There's no question in my mind. The government is doing what it can.
Okay, government is doing what it can. We are taking sufficient steps. That's the view that we've got so far. Professor Khan, what is your view on the kind of data that the government has shared? Because, why I took up this issue today, because it's probably the first time we've got to know, a little bit about how badly unemployment is impacting the country. People are losing jobs. They have committed suicide as well. So it tells us how serious the problem is. So we need to now move ahead. As Mr. Alag also mentioned that, it was at a time during the pandemic when not just India, but every country suffered. But I want to now ask you, are we doing enough now to end joblessness? Do we have this realization? Are we acknowledging how serious the problem is?
I'd like to start off by telling you that we have become very insensitive. We are talking about thousands of suicides, and here we are patting our back saying we are doing enough. I mean, that itself is such a sad thing to say, that, we are so many people and therefore so many will die. I mean, that's the kind of country that we want to be in. I really felt very miserable when I heard that. But, let me remind you that of a headline 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the headline was unemployment at its worst. 4 years ago, same headline. It is not the pandemic. The pandemic did lose jobs. It certainly contributed. But we had the highest rate of unemployment when the government was busy hiding the data from us. The PLFS, and Santosh will tell you a lot more about it, told us very clearly as to how dismal the situation was. And look at what we've done. Look at what we did even in this budget. Where are we on areas where the employment multiplier is high? What have we done? We keep saying the government is doing all it can. The government is doing much more than it can. what has it done to those sectors which have high employment multipliers? Did it say anything about a sector that is dying, the tourism sector? We are only happy because our sectors are protected or because we have a market in urban centers where the top 100 million pay for us and create demand. That's the trouble. See, the problem that I am highlighting is, is a very fundamental shift in how we look at our political economy. And that is that we have begun to come into this comfort zone where we all think, the privileged lot, we all think that it is not the government's job to worry about jobs. Because, I studied in a super government school, in a great government college, and now I'm very privileged. Now I'm very comfortable. I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to lose my livelihood, come what pandemic happens. And therefore now I don't think that the rest deserve it. I am now saying that you should not be job seekers. You should be job creators. Even if those job creators are people who sell pakoras. Or as one member of parliament said, who are beggars, because begging also is a job. So you see, what has happened is that we have lost the whole fundamental definition of what a government's responsibility is. And secondly, what jobs are. Jobs are not unpaid or underpaid, menial, manual scavenging jobs. Jobs are what add value to the economy. And they are not transfers of income from here to there. And the final point I want to say is that it's not urban jobs alone. Look at what's happened to rural jobs. They've been falling for 5 years. Please do not just blame the pandemic. And what have we done there? We've cut Manrega by 25%.
Well, you're right
So
when you say Professor Khan and Professor Mehrotra. We've discussed many a times in the past as well that, this issue of job crisis or unemployment was there even before the pandemic came into our lives. And that's why I reiterated that these are not numbers. These are the number of families who were devastated because somebody in their family committed suicide. Now, I want to ask you, is enough being done to address this matter, in your opinion?
If enough was being done, why would thousands be committing suicide? Why would unemployment have risen before COVID? 30 million people were openly unemployed. Never in the history of our country were 30 million people openly unemployed as in 2019. So please don't tell me, like the government economists have been repeating ad nauseum and the RBI governor has been doing at the same time for the last 2 years, that Say's law works. Say's law, you have to be absolutely illiterate in macroeconomics that Say's law works. The whole world has gone the Keynesian way. The whole world. And what was the size of our fiscal stimulus in FY21? It was 2.2% of GDP at the same time that emerging market economies had put in place a fiscal stimulus of 4.7% of GDP. Ours was 40% of the size of the emerging market economies, and all the other economies in FY21 itself were recovering before. We have not even got to 2018-19. But let me, if you get one financial economist as chief economic advisor, and when he leaves, you appoint yet another financial economist, that shows that you want only bhakts as economists in your Ministry of Finance. What you need is someone who understands macroeconomics. Let me turn to some more specific points. We were told just now that capex is going to generate jobs. Well, the previous budget, FY22, was also praised to high skies for very high capex. Has it generated the jobs? And now we are being told that 6 million jobs will be generated thanks to the performance-linked initiative, the incentives. And there is capex in FY23 as well. Most of the central government capex goes to relatively capital-intensive infrastructure creation. So don't tell me that capex is suddenly going to generate jobs. NAHI invests on behalf of central government. It's only when the state governments invest that jobs get generated in infrastructure. I haven't finished. Excuse me. The narrative that is being created by the Prime Minister, we were just told yesterday, or was it day before, that so many net additions have taken place to the EPFO, the Employees Provident Fund. Employees Provident Fund net additions does not tell you that new jobs are being created. It is only telling you that some degree of formalization is taking place. That it is, in other words, the Prime Minister himself neither understands, or he knows and understands, or he's flinging dust in our eyes.
Okay.
The second thing that the Prime Minister keeps telling us is, oh, we've done so much mudra. Mudra might have generated self-employment, but the fact of the matter is, the government's own PLFS, the Periodic Labor Force Survey, tells us that self-employment has actually declined over the last 3 years, precisely over the period that mudra was happening. So how are you going to square this circle? That the Prime Minister and his ministers tell us that mudra is generating self-employment, and on the other hand, the government's own PLFS is telling us that it's falling. Which is the reason that the Prime Minister has no hesitation in informing us that doing a pakoda and earning with 200 rupees a day is also a job. Do you know what kind of income 200 rupees a day gives you?
So, in your opinion, Professor Mehrotra, the government has failed to acknowledge how serious the problem is, and if you haven't acknowledged how serious the problem is, then the diagnosis can't really be as required. Sir, I'll come to you with a question in just a bit, but let me before that get quick response from Mr. Sunil Alag as well as Mr. Unnikrishnan to what you said. Mr. Alag first.
No, I think that earlier gentleman said that we are not bothered about people who are dying. That's a very wrong statement. We neither the previous person has said it nor have I said it, because if you go into anything that, look, when 25,000 people die, it's 100% for that 25,000. But what percentage is you're looking at a macro level? So nobody talks about, even if you take a COVID shot and somebody dies of COVID after 2, now that person who's died is 100%, and we are all for it. We are not saying that, look, it doesn't matter who's dying and who's not dying. We have said that, look, ultimately, somebody has talked about Say's law and Keynes' law. The Economist can keep on arguing that. What we are saying is, or not one suggestion has come from the other side as yet, other than complaints. I am saying, all right, if the government is spending more on capex, spending more on roads, spending more on, why should they have spent it? Let's hear the suggestions. No, that's what the Prime Minister is saying. Look, enough of complaining. Why are you not coming forth and saying what they should have done, as opposed to saying, oh, they are creating one and they are doing this and they are doing that, and fine, we are accepting it. Everybody is accepting it, including the government. But come up with some suggestions on saying, no, you should not have gone in for capex. Don't build roads. Don't build this. Don't build that. Don't spend money on that, because that doesn't create jobs. Then let's have a debate on that. Let's have a debate on that issue, instead of saying, no, this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong. We all know it's gone wrong. But they think that what they are doing is right, and therefore it's not enough. Nobody says it's enough. Nobody says that they have done enough. But they've recognized that the problem, they've recognized it, and they think that by spending on capex, they're going to create jobs. Why isn't the private sector doing, as the gentleman said earlier, we have to get a combination of people. We can't have economists arguing with economists. We are saying at this point of time, look, we could have gone the other way around and said, all right, open up on tourism, open up on everything. And then if all of us got COVID, then you'd have complained. Why has the government opened up? Why have you done this? There are more deaths. You should have been a little more sensible. Fine. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you can keep on arguing about what's happened in the past. We are discussing the way to the future. If the government thinks that by creating more capex, they're going to attract investment, then fine. If they are thinking no, let's hear the points. So what do they think? Where should the money have gone? That's what I'm waiting for.
Heena, may I come in?
Yes, so instead of complaining, we need solutions. Professor Santosh Mehrotra wants to respond, then Mr. Unnikrishnan. Yes.
The solution was already there in what I said. When I criticized the size of the fiscal stimulus, I was saying very, very, very clearly that you have to generate demand. You have to put money into people's pocket, because aggregate demand has collapsed. You cannot take supply side measures alone, which is why I said the fiscal deficit has to increase. It should have been higher in FY22.
That means the announcements in budget 2022 are not enough to create demand.
then Sunil Alagh will still turn around and say, आप तो जवाब ही नहीं दे रहे, आप तो कोई सजेशन नहीं देते. अरे आप सुनिएगा तब तो आप
बट मैं आपसे एक सीधा सवाल पूछ रही हूँ प्रोफेसर मेहरोत्रा, मैं तो आपसे सवाल पूछ रही हूँ, समझना चाहती हूँ. आप बोल रहे हैं कि आपने सोल्यूशन दिया है. I just want to understand your perspective, where you're coming from. I want to know from you, are you then trying to say that, you know, the budget announcements will not address the issue of demand, and hence
Correct.
we won't
Correct.
have enough job creation as being desired?
Correct.
Is that what
You
you're
will
saying?
not.
Okay.
Absolutely, you will not.
Go
because
ahead.
CapEx,
Yes. Okay.
Listen to what I said. CapEx by the central government is going to capital-intensive infrastructure and investment. Please try and understand that.
No, building of roads is not capital-intensive
Yes,
at all. Yaar. Come on, you're carrying on arguing for the sake of arguing.
NIHA is CapEx. NHAI is CapEx. And they use JCBs, Caterpillars.
Oh,
They
God,
don't use that.
But how much jobs do they create? How many jobs do they create?
See, let me clarify one point over here.
Okay, gentlemen, one at a time. Mr. Unni Krishnan wants to come in. Yes.
Because Santosh is a very good friend of mine. We work together on multiple things for the government. So let me come to this. You have to seize upon the problem. What we are not recognizing is our population is growing at a rate of 1.4%. So our annual population growth is nearly
1%.
more than 200 million. So just listen to me. So we are gifting one Australia to the world every year, and creating employment for one Australia every year is
That
not
was
a very
10 years
practical
ago.
thing. So let us understand.
It was 10 years
Let me
ago.
clarify to you. Let me complete it. There is primary sector job, there is secondary sector job, there is tertiary, and quaternary is added right now. We are one country, we have got a humongous problem, and there are no solutions in our mind, and I don't think anybody in the world is able to be giving a solution for it. The problem right now is those who are normally used to 55% of Indian population who are in the primary jobs, means farming, to maybe mining, to whatever the resources to be taken out, their children are not wanting to continue in the rural job. They are looking for secondary jobs. So primary to secondary shift is the biggest challenge for the country, in that there is only one solution: capacity creation in manufacturing, in construction. But Santosh, please remember, textile industry, which we used to talk about it also, is the single largest employer in the country, other than construction. We are giving a lot more in terms of API, PLI, power sector, the roads that you spoke about. It's not road laying. The quantum of cement needed for it. The quantum of steel needed for it. Please remember, manufacturing a JCB. JCB in India employs 10,000 people. So it is entire capex is going to be creating two types of job. Primary job is at the time when the construction is going on or the factories are getting built, the people who are constructing it. Once that is completed, there is an operation and maintenance. That's a servicing job. Please remember, there is enough and more opportunities getting created, but insufficient for 140 crore people growing at the rate of 1.5%. So let us look at a permanent solution and a temporary solution. Nobody is got a magic wand to solve the problem.
I think that's an important point that Mr. Unni Krishnan as well as Mr. Alagh has raised. And I really want to highlight and I really want to focus, on that. We need solutions, and we will talk about solutions in just a bit. But before that, Professor Khan and Professor Mehrotra, I have a question for both of you. Professor Khan, to you first. I was just looking at the data of CMIE. Now, the latest that we've got is for January 2022. The unemployment rate has actually come down to about 6.57%, from a high of about 11.84% in May 2021. Of course, it was fluctuating in between, but, in January specifically, it has come down. So, again, coming back to the same question that I asked earlier, what we are talking about happened till 2020. Since then, have we learned the lessons? Are we on the right track? Are we doing enough?
Okay, so let me
quick
state
response,
it again.
Professor Khan, then Professor Mehrotra.
Quick response. Firstly, I don't know, Sunil first said that the government is doing more than enough. In his last statement, he said, no, we are not doing enough. At no point of
time did I say it's doing more than enough. No point of time.
You can play this. No. You said more than enough. And then you said that we haven't done enough and that we are willing for
This is never an end.
To hear suggestions. So Sunil, here are the solutions. And you, in your mind, decide whether this government is going to do any of
Professor
those.
Khan, I'll come to solutions in just a bit. Professor Khan,
Okay.
Professor Khan,
Yeah.
I'll have to interrupt you there. I'll come to you the aspect of solutions in just a bit. But before that, I want you and Professor Mehrotra to respond to what specifically I asked.
What you asked for solutions, isn't it? Oh, you said, are we doing enough? I said no.
No,
we are not
I said
doing
I'll
enough.
come to that aspect in just a bit. I said I'll come to that aspect in just a bit. But before that, you know, the idea of having this debate tonight is also to understand, have we acknowledged the problem? Are we doing enough, or are we in the right direction at least? And here I have some data. Now, you don't want to believe
Excellent.
what the Prime Minister said in the Parliament yesterday. He said hiring has doubled. He also gave us a number of jobs that, you know, the economy has got. Now, in front of me, there is CMIE data, which we all look at every month and every week when it comes out. Now, it says in January, 6.57% was the unemployment rate versus 7.91% in December. And if you compare it to the high that we've seen in last 1 year, that was in May 2021, 11.84%. How will you like to respond to this?
Yeah, let me quickly answer it directly. You know, the most
then we'll come to
data,
solutions.
Yeah, the most reliable data on unemployment would come from the government itself, and that was called the PLFS, the Periodic Labor Force Survey. What did it do? It measured unemployment every quarter, every 3, and we went by that data. The moment that data started pointing out problems, that data was withdrawn. That data was not revealed. In fact, we dumped the PLFS. You see, the problem with everything, and you will acknowledge this, ask any question to the government and it says we don't have data. How many people died? This is the first time they're talking about suicide. How many people died during the migrant crisis? We don't know. We don't have the data. How many policemen died? We don't have the data. How many are unemployed? We don't have the data. If it was serious, and
first
this is my
time we have
answer,
got the data, sir. First time we've got the data, and Professor Mehrotra, I'm sure, will disagree with what you are saying, because we've had this argument in the past as well.
For suicides, no. You have the data for suicides. We do not have the government data for unemployment.
Due to unemployment. Suicides due to unemployment and financial crisis, bankruptcy.
So hear me again. The data that the data we are being given is that so many people committed suicide due to unemployment. We are not getting data on how much unemployment exists. Why can't we have a 3-monthly figure, preferably a month, if we are serious about unemployment? You know, unemployment is the cause of these suicides.
Professor Mehrotra, I'm sure, is going to disagree with you. Professor Mehrotra.
I'm sure he wants data. I'm sure he wants data as much as I do. At least I want to see the data. And then I will answer and that is the data that all of us want. If we are serious about solving a problem, we want the data, isn't it? Will anyone deny that? So if we are serious,
so we don't have the data. That's the sense that you are giving to us. Professor Mehrotra, quickly.
Let me clarify very quickly. We have the PLFS data for 2019-20, but we don't have it for 2021, the annual survey. The annual survey for 2021 was completed in June, but we are now in February, and we still don't have that data. So that's a problem. I think the NSO needs to work harder and needs to work faster. Point 2. Are we adding an Australia every year? I don't think so. We used to add an Australia till about 10 years ago. Our total fertility rate has dropped very sharply. The National Family Health Survey of 2020-21 has shown in unmistakable terms that the national total fertility rate has dropped below replacement level. It's already 2. And our population growth rate is, in any case, only 1.04 per annum. We are not adding Australia. Point 2. Agriculture, this government's policies sent people rushing back to agriculture. For 15 years between 2004 and 19, there were millions who were leaving agriculture for non-farm jobs, because non-farm jobs were growing, and they were growing much faster before 2014. They've been growing much slower, and I can prove that. I don't have the time to do that. In 1 year alone, this government's policies added 32 million people to agriculture. At least provide enough money for Manrega for them. That will generate demand. Solution number 1, recognize what the problem is, then you will know what the solutions are. Second, provide an urban Manrega. There are 3 states of India which already have implemented an urban Manrega. Please implement, you could have implemented that in 2020 and you can still do that. This is the reason why the Samajwadi Party is already offering that. Thirdly, do we even know, has the Prime Minister recognized that in the last 4 years, manufacturing jobs, despite Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, Falana India, Dhamaka India, manufacturing jobs have halved between 2017 and now 51 million down to 27 million. You don't still have a manufacturing strategy, and PLI is not a manufacturing strategy because PLI...
You've stated another problem, Professor Mehrotra. You've stated another problem while you were giving us solutions. One question. No, sir, you didn't even respond to my question. No, sir, you didn't even respond to my question. I'll give you time to complete. I'll give you time to give solutions. 1 second. Professor Mehrotra, it's a very serious issue, sir, that we are discussing. And I really want you to also address the points that I'm raising. No, I'll 1 second. Professor Mehrotra, hear me out first, please. With due respect, sir. I asked a specific question and I want you to respond to that. While what you're saying is absolutely right, I am not questioning that at all. I want to know and understand how should we interpret the data that's being thrown at us, left, right, and center. CMIE data, something that we all look forward to every month, every week, and then every year also. Now, 1 second, sir. Now, January data, the data in the month of January has shown a dip in unemployment. So don't you think that maybe something has started working?
You will understand, na. If you listen to me, you will understand. You get ups and downs in employment and unemployment in the agriculture life cycle. In the agricultural cycle, you get a dip and you get a upside. Don't go by what happens in 1 month and don't fling that at me. Try and understand what the structural problem is. The structural problem is what Unni was talking about.
News, we should not see it. If it is giving us a bad news, only then it should be highlighted.
Correct.
I mean, what is this, Professor Mehrotra? Anyways, you don't want to focus on, the dip, some kind of green shoot that we've started seeing. It's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But you were telling us about solutions. You were telling us about solutions. 2 solutions, sir, you've already told us. Recognize the problem. Urban Manrega is your solution. Any other solution that you want to give to the government?
I'm telling you, if you listen to me, I'll tell you more. You need a PLI for each of the labor-intensive sectors. Which are the labor-intensive manufacturing sectors? Leather and footwear.
Okay.
What has this government done for leather and footwear? It has destroyed it with its cow ban. Secondly, for wood and furniture, you need a PLI. Third, you need a PLI for food processing. You need a PLI for garments, not just for textiles. Finally, Derai Durastai, they've got one for textiles. These are the 5 sectors in manufacturing which need a PLI. You have it only in 1. Why? Can you give me an answer to that? Can the government give me an answer to that? Why is more money not being given to the state governments so they can invest in capex? Because local capex by the state.
But the Food Processing Ministry recently gave nod to about 83 proposals for incentives under PLI scheme. Okay, I got your point. 3 important suggestions you've given to us. Let's go across to other guests as well. Mr. Unni Krishnan, when we want to focus on solutions, 1 or 2 things that you want the government to immediately look at after the budget is over now, apart from that?
I would say a very clear map for the 100 lakh crore investment in capex, which they've spoken about. We possibly have for the first year nearly maybe 20 lakh crore already identified. But rising from maybe a 7.5 crore which we provided, which in reality may become 10, real spend on the ground, unless that execution is done, which I don't think we have got the capability as a country. And we need to have, I agree with the other two of the professors also on that, Santosh and the professor also, that we need to have a higher cooperation between state and center happening, because both Sunil Alag and Unnikrishnan do not come from any political dispensation.
Yeah, correct.
We do not represent anything. We represent Indians only. So we are on the same side. Unless otherwise, because end of the day, a central government alone is incapable of having jobs created, investment done, because it's a lot of them are in concurrent area and maybe revenue, land related are state in nature, land acquisition equivalent, a number of things are there. So I would say that we need to have the animosity removed and we need to work together, and enough and more money will be made available. And we need to stop cribbing about anything and say, I agree that solutions, if it's there, we need to improve our execution. The moment we have this kind of disparity of thinking, then nothing moves. There are only hurdles. I possibly see a lot more of positivism immediately after the pandemic is coming to a control level right now. And I have a belief that current year we can grow faster. And I'm not one person who would say GDP growth is the only ultimate thing. I would believe that human life is more important. We are equally concerned, both Mr. Sunil Alag, Unnikrishnan, or anybody who comes from the other side of the industry, we don't like death. We don't like anybody to be suffering. We don't want any Indian to be not going without food. So whatever needs to be done for that has to be done. If kit is to be given, give kit. Anything that is to be Manrega to be done for urban or anywhere, please do that. But let us do one more thing. Let us support creation of wealth so that we can distribute it. That politics should take care of it. So all of us, let's support to ensure that we have more edifices. And I was very happy when somebody, I think Professor mentioned about that, let's not seek jobs, let's create jobs. That is what we need to be doing, because there is no time currently to talk about in detail, but let me clarify to you, we need to be investing a lot more. Then the money will get percolated down to the consumer's hand. Then demand will go up, capacity will get created. So this is a circle. So enough and more thinking is done. What we need in this country is execution now. And for that, none of us should be standing in the way. That's all what I would say at this point of time.
Okay. Professor Khan, coming to you for the answer you've been waiting to give our viewers, the solutions.
Thank you so much. I was not here to give solutions only, but because that's the complaint. That's the complaint that is often.
But last time I asked you another question, you were ready with your list of solutions.
I was, because I was provoked to, in the sense that, you see, like Santosh said, we first need to acknowledge a problem. If we think that we are doing
then we
enough,
should have many more such debates, sir, so that we get more and more solutions. And we will not have these kind of problems then.
Okay, I'll just speak 3 sentences and then you can come in.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I was saying that we first need to acknowledge problems. If we say that we are doing more than enough, we do not acknowledge.
Again,
if we say we are growing, if we are saying that we are growing, our population is growing, we have more children than we can handle, that is not acknowledging the problem. A population cannot be a problem. They are our children. So if we say that, then we are not looking for solutions. But if we accept all of that we are a large country, that means we are a large market. And I'm speaking as an industry economist here. I'm far happier that we have millions of people in the market who are my consumers. And I'm not complaining about them. And the fact is that my population is stabilizing at the fastest rate ever. So please do not say those 1950s and 60s kinds of issues anymore, but the solutions. And here I'm just giving you a list of solutions, and each one of you decide whether the government we have right now is going to take these solutions seriously or not. And these solutions are not, Keynesian or Say's law or Adam Smith's solutions. These are solutions that have worked everywhere in the world. First solution, we need to provide our children with education. We need a good new education policy implemented, not have girls standing outside colleges waiting to enter and doors shut at them. We need to fight discrimination in our workplace. We need to allow everybody to work. Our industry needs to ensure that everybody gets a job who is qualified to get a job. We need subsidies for firms that hire specially able people. We need to pay companies who hire unemployed people and train them. And we need fiscal measures that in financial crisis situations that help create employment. And finally, we need to fight structural unemployment. We need to create jobs. We should not keep talking about others, people creating jobs. We need to provide the jobs. People are creating jobs for themselves. What do these poor pakoda fellows do? They create a job for themselves. We need to get them out of there and give them a respectable job. These are the solutions. Think of which ones will be applicable in our case, in our country today. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. In fact, we've got a number of solutions. I want to give the last word now to Mr. Sunil Alag. What is it that you would like to say as closing comment? And also, if anything, immediately that the government can do, that the private sector can consider?
No, look, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I can't disagree with Professor Khan or him because they are not solutions. They are saying we need to do this, we need to do that. We think we need to do a lot of things. There's no question. For this year, we should have gone in for more divestment, which was 1.7 lakh crores last year, and we did only about 10%. If we had more money, can I just finish? I'm talking about solutions now for the next 9 months or the next 10 months. You're talking about solutions which are forever, which no one can argue against. It's like truisms. We need to do this, we need to do that. We need to give something for leather. We need to, what we've learned in industry is if you have only 100 rupees, you focus for the next 9 months. Where do you want to spend it? Because I can spend 2 rupees on leather, 2 rupees on this. It won't make any difference. You need to focus on a few areas for the next 9 months. And they should focus on more divestment. And they should focus on bringing up their capex so that more employment is created. If not, we will go back to the Keynes law. As he said, 9 months is no big amount for a country like of our size. We need to work on controlling population, even though they don't think it's a population growth problem. As Mr. Unikrishnan and I have said, population is a problem. Manufacturing jobs, China chose manufacturing as an area. First, for the next 10 years, they only created large factories. Today, they are going in for the softer areas, which we've created. We have created more on IT. We've done more. Now we are going to focus on manufacturing. You cannot focus on everything every year. So you must take the money and whatever you can try and get more money. And let me tell you one more research which has been done all over the world. If you give money in the hands of upper middle income group, they will save it. They will save the money. They will never spend it. If you put money in the hands of the rural and you put money in the hands of the poor, they will spend. When they will spend, they will create the demand, and that's when industry will create the jobs. So as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that I would have suggested to the government is put more money into the hands of the lower middle income. The upper middle income group can survive. We will carry on for the next 1 to 2 years. We will sacrifice something for the nation, as Professor Khan has said. We must sacrifice. But we are talking about the next 9 months now, sir. We are not talking about for the whole 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. What everybody is suggesting over here, you can't have for every industry. The government has chosen a few. I may agree or may disagree. I think I'm a follower of Keynes. I've done economics, not a professor, but I've done economics honors in St. Xavier's in Calcutta. And I'm just saying they followed Say's law. They will learn. If Say's law doesn't work and it doesn't trickle down, they'll move to Keynes next year. Why aren't we waiting for 9 months? Yeah, that's all. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Let a few 100,000 die now.
Right. Those are some interesting points that you all... These are some interesting points you all have made.
That's not the point. That's not the point.
Gentlemen,
we are not wanting one human being to die.
Gentlemen, I'm completely out of time now. I'm completely out of time now. But I really want to thank all of you. Those were some interesting points, in fact, that all of you made. We all agree that it is something that, needs attention of the government. Something is being done, but a little more is what is needed right now. I appreciate all of you for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Heading into a very, very short break, but there's lots lined up for you on the other side as well. Stay with us.